So hi again. Hi, everybody. So I think we'll probably can go ahead and get started, and people will come in as we're introducing ourselves. So I'm DJ Brazier. I'm a faculty member in the biology department, and I manage some of the Masters of Comp Bio program. And then Josh.
Josh Kangas. I'm in the Comp Bio department. I'm the assistant director for the automated science program, and we're looking forward to talking to you more about this. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Madrinich. I'm a program coordinator in the Computational Biology department. And I will be here recording the main session and then also keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to add them there and then we'll address them at the end of the talk.
Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, can everyone see my slides? Great. All right, so we want to go ahead and give you basically an overview of the two master's programs that involve computational biology today. And hopefully you can get enough information that you can make a decision about whether you want to apply for our program and join us. So in order to start this out, I'd like to basically give you a taste of what computational biology is. So I know from my perspective, I have a PhD in comp bio, and whenever I'm out and about or say talking to my distant family, they ask me what I'm up to, and I say I have a PhD in comp bio, and people are like, what's going on with this? And so we want to give you a flavor of a couple different kinds of problems. That way you can fully understand the sorts of problems that we tackle in our programs. So one of the major problems that you can think about is genome reconstruction. So if you want to determine the sequence of a genome, there are some experimental techniques that you need to use, and then there are computational techniques associated with those. So first of all, you make multiple copies of the genome, and these are all identical copies. And then because we can't actually sequence really long strands of DNA, like the human genome, for example, then we actually have to cut it up into little tiny pieces. And we can read short sequences. So short is relative. So these might be anywhere from a couple hundred bases to tens of thousands of bases, but it's still not even close to the entire genome. So we cut it up into these little pieces. We read each of these individual pieces. That's called sequencing. And then once we have these little pieces, then we need to reconstruct these, by finding the alignment of these little pieces to each other into a complete genome. And that's a very computationally intense problem, and it requires a lot of clever computation to solve it. So that's one example of a problem that we like to work on. A variation on this is when we're looking at what's called metagenomics. And so metagenomics is different from analyzing genomes because we're actually looking at DNA from multiple sources. It might be, though, from a single environment, like, for example, the Three Rivers of Pittsburgh, where we have lots of different weird kinds of bacteria. And so we can take a sample of river water and then pull all the DNA out of the river water, and then again we shatter the DNA into tiny reeds, and then based on those little reeds, then we try to determine what species of bacteria or organisms are present in the water, and then we can look at the effects of, say, like environmental changes or seasonal changes, that sort of thing. And so we can begin to understand what's affecting the biome in the river. The pictures that we're showing here, the upper right hand corner is a couple of undergrad students. So we actually took the students out on a pontoon boat and collected water samples for a project that we do in one of our lab classes. And then the bottom picture is from a pre-college program, and we included that not because we're expecting you to join, and it's for high school students, but we often have our master's students act as TAs in that program. And that's tons and tons of fun every summer. So that would be something you'd have an opportunity to do if you were to join us. There's also lots of excitement right now about CRISPR in terms of gene editing. And some of that excitement is from the interesting things that could potentially be done with CRISPR, but also there's, in fairness, some concerns about ethics. And so we don't just focus our programs exclusively on cool outcomes experimentally or computationally. We also have some focus on the ethics of computational biology, and that includes both what you can do with the experimental techniques, but also like privacy issues and that sort of thing. Also looking at the effects of automation on society. So ethics and cool computation are all important to us. All right. So another interesting project that we have taken on here at CMU is to build a cellular map of the human body. So you have different organs in your body, and within the different organs, there are different cell types. And so what can actually be done is that we can do individual RNA sequencing of genes within cells, single cells. And so based on the expression level of those genes within individual cells, then we can start to group these cell types together based on their current state. And then we can link those to different organs. And in that way, build a functional map of the human body based on sequencing data. Another aspect of computational biology is the analysis of medical images. And so I'm sure you're aware that there's tons and tons of medical data available, but as it turns out, most of that medical data is actually in the form of images. And partly that's a practical matter because images take up a lot of space to store. But images are also fairly easy to capture. And so we can actually use machine learning methods and AI methods to make diagnoses based on images that we can capture. And that's an important and hot topic right now that lots of people are working on, and that we train our students in to some extent. Then when you're thinking about modern biology research, one of the major components of it is that you are generating tons and tons of data. So if you think about genomics experiments, for example, what we're doing in a genomics experiment in the lab is actually generating literally gigabytes of data for a single sample. And so from that perspective, there's no hope of manually doing the analysis that would be required to understand those data. So computation is absolutely essential. The other part of this is that the way in which you should be thinking about problems in biology right now should tend towards a computational approach, so that whenever you're generating those data, you're generating this data as effectively as you can and in a way that allows you to learn as much as possible about the specific problem you're trying to tackle. So the author of this article is making the case that all biology is basically computational biology, and I would tend to agree with it, and I would imagine that the training would reflect that for you whenever you join us. Okay. I also want to take a moment to talk about a little bit of the motivation for automated science and kind of what that means by taking a look back at the way biological research has changed in the last few hundred years. Okay, so early biological research we would call descriptive research, and so what was happening is that basically people were going out and counting leaves or measuring tree branches and counting toes on tortoises and that sort of thing. So basically just describing what's been observed. And then people became more interested in the mechanistic side of biology and tried to understand exactly the way certain processes would work within cells, for example, or within organs. So an example of that is a central dogma. And with a dogma, it's like you would never violate this, right? So we have these rules. The DNA is transcribed to RNA, which is translated to protein, right? This is the dogma. Okay, but not long after this was determined, we actually found that these rules don't actually apply all the time, right? So there are exceptions to all of these rules. Well, I won't say all of them, but many of them. So there's actually enzymes that allow us to reverse transcribe RNA into DNA. So that's an exception to this rule. And what you find as you are trying to build rules for biological systems is you find that they often have so many exceptions that the rules aren't particularly useful, and in a way that allows you to make many different predictions. So then we're moving on to this approach where we're building systems biology models that are fairly complex, and they're predictive models that make a prediction about the behavior of a system. And so that's where a lot of biology is right now. So the way it works to generate a systems biology model is that you generate big data, meaning you run some kind of large sequencing process, or you generate thousands and thousands of images, or whatever it is that you're interested in. You generate lots of data. Then from that, you learn a predictive model, perhaps using some kind of machine learning method. And then you want to make sure that your machine learning method works well. So you try to validate the model. And so there are lots of strategies for trying to validate a model, but the reality is that you will never actually validate a model because you can't run all of the possible experiments. So you really can't prove it, you can't validate it. And so the alternative strategy to that is to try to use a process called active machine learning, which is a key component of automated science. And the idea here is that rather than trying to generate data that would allow you to prove a model, which is impossible, you focus your efforts on generating data that allow you to improve your model. So you're asking for only the most informative experiments in an iterative way. So you run a set of experiments, then you build a predictive model from those data, and then based on the model, you select the next set of experiments that you believe to be the most informative. So if you want to think about this kind of in a simple illustration, right, there's a game of Battleship that you can play, and then you select individual locations in turns, and then each turn you try to select a new spot that allows you to learn more about the board and hopefully defeat your opponent. There's also like 20 questions. In 20 questions, the kinds of questions you ask every time are the ones that are most informative, as opposed to just trying to go straight for the answer. So those are two different ways of thinking about it. The reason that this strategy is important is because there are a lot of really interesting and complex systems that are worth studying. So diseases are very heterogeneous. So diabetes and cancer are two prime examples where we have a lot of complexity in the way the disease affects people. And then beyond that, we have a lot of heterogeneity in the patients. So personalized medicine is a major and important problem that a lot of computational biologists are working on, because people are very complex and it's difficult to predict exactly how they're going to react to various treatments when they get sick. And so we're trying to build models to help to address that. So the experiment selection process is typically done by an AI or active learning process. The experiment execution, in this case, is often done with lab automation. So what we're showing in this video is a liquid handling robot. And the liquid handling robot is basically a micropipette that is totally robotically controlled. So basically you program it, it will do all the work for you instead of having to move your thumbs to control the micropipette. And then the predictive modeling, the kind of training that we provide for that is machine learning directed towards computational biology problems. Okay, so I want to take a moment to talk about why you should join us. First of all, it's important that I point out that fellowships are available. So we are very interested in having a diverse cohort of students, and to that end, we have fellowships for for diverse students and also very bright students. And those are available. Definitely send us email about those if you're interested, and there should be a spot you can mark on the application if you'd like consideration for those fellowships. In terms of computational biology research, Carnegie Mellon is #1 for comp bio research, and so we do awesome work here, and you would have an experience to you'd have the potential to work with faculty and be involved with their research projects. We also love to connect our students to cool opportunities. So there are many, many different companies that are doing computational biology research. We're showing some of those examples here, but we have regularly industry talks from people from these companies where they talk about what they're doing. And we also spend a lot of time working to directly connect our students to these companies. So an example of that would be in both of the master's programs in the first semester, there's a professional development course. And one of the tasks for that course is for students to generate a resume. And so once that resume is generated, we actually collect all the resumes from students who are interested in seeking industry careers or looking for internships. And we send those a resume book out to all of our contacts in these companies. And in my experience with the automated science students, that tends to get them lots of opportunities for internships. And I'm certain that's the case also for the MS Comp Bio program. We also like to connect our alums and our students. So we bring them back and give them the opportunity to tell our current students what they've been up to. And they're always doing cool stuff. And it's always exciting to give the students an opportunity to hear from them. We also built an entire careers website. So you can get on this website and you can search for a job type and location and category, and it will pull up companies that will that are looking for people who would fit that sort of job. And that should help to make your career search more efficient when it comes time for that. It also works for identifying internships. And obviously, I have a comp bio PhD, and I work at CMU and love what I do. So I would be incredibly biased, but I wouldn't be the only one saying that computational biology is an incredibly important field. So we've got a quote here from Bill Gates about AI and bioscience being what he would choose to do if he started out today to have a huge impact. And then Francis Collins, the NIH director, he said, if he was a senior in college, he'd be a computational biologist. And I think that's strong evidence for the fact that computational biology and computation related to biological problems is going to be super important going forward. And it currently is right now. And speaking of very wealthy and successful people, people are always asking us about employment status after they graduate, what they can expect. So we have the students report their salaries after they graduate. So this would be for the undergraduates. So they have an average salary. Undergraduates in biological sciences, they have an average salary of about $52,000, and those are from the last 3 years. And then you can compare that to the students who have a master's degree in comp bio, and the average salary is $95,000. And so that's to point out that there's a huge benefit from a salary perspective in getting the master's degree and also having a focus in computational biology. We don't have data for the master's in automated science program yet. Part of the reason for that is we just graduated our first class in May, and they haven't all, the data hasn't all been collected yet. But I can say from the few students who told me their salaries and the kinds of career opportunities they had available to them on their way out the door, it's very much in line with the MS Comp Bio program. And so you should be able to expect that things will go well for you when you graduate from either program. Okay.
All right.
So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to DJ to talk about the curriculum.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And so yeah, Josh is, as Josh mentioned, he's got a PhD in computational biology. My own background is actually more in wet lab biology, and I'm also one of the people who wishes that I could go back a little bit, maybe like Francis Collins had said, and go back and get a little bit more computational experience under my belt earlier on in my career, because it is really an awesome field to be able to now see the work that's going on. And so, yeah, we'll sort of step through the curriculum here. So I think just go through kind of semester by semester and talk about the different courses and in the two programs. So my work is more closely with the students in the computational biology master's degree, and then Josh working with the automated science suite and the automated science research center and laboratories, works with the master's in automated science program, but he and I work closely together, and there's of course a lot of overlap. So in the first semester, all the students take programming, a cell molecular biology course, a math and statistics course, and a course in professional issues that Josh mentioned. That professional issues course is one that I am biased about because I teach it, but I also am very passionate about and think that it's a valuable course. It's where we do have these opportunities to interface with industry and also work with you in peer groups and individually on resumes, on interviews, and working on all of those skills that it takes to not just be an excellent scientist, but also to communicate how excellent you are to prospective employers so that you are able to be as successful as possible in your career. There are, of course, some differences between the programs. There's an algorithms and data structures course that students in the Comp Bio program take in their first semester, and then a lab methods course in automated biology. And that's one thing that is distinct in the automated science program as compared to the Comp Bio. Computational biology, the master's program there, has no lab requirement at all. It's all data analytics driven, but the automated science does have a lab course. Josh, was there something you wanted to add about like what some of the details of what happens in the lab course?
Yeah, so we have the first automation lab in the country that's designed for completely automated experimentation. And it's a little bit of that. So I have a picture of it here, but basically it's a fully enclosed system where we can do mammalian tissue culture based experiments. So if you think of the kinds of experiments you might do in a typical undergraduate biology lab, we can probably do most of those and then some in this system because of the components that we've selected. And so we have this robotic arm runs down a rail in the middle of this system, and then basically that robotic arm will move plates between different devices. So we have the liquid handler, we have a automated confocal microscope in there, we have a qPCR machine, a plate reader, we have a automated incubator, so we don't actually have to touch any plates or anything. The robot will do all of that for us. So the focus of that class is to teach students to use these sorts of equipment and give them experience in actual automation as applied to interesting biology problems.
Yeah, and then so in the second semester, students in both programs take machine learning classes and a class on automation of biological research that has a sort of pedagogical sort of classroom approach to understanding the automation process. And that for the computational biology master's program, like I said, you don't do the lab as a required part, although some years there have been a few students that have done that as an elective. If there's space for that in the courses, but then the students in the automated science program continue doing more of their laboratory work and also do a little bit more professional skills that's more directed toward the automated science program. And then meanwhile, the students in the computational biology program take courses in genetics and genomics. to really build up those skills in developing the data analytics side of things, which is the focus for that computational biology program. And then, yeah, after that, there's actually an optional internship available in both programs as a summer internship. And part of what we do in these professional skills courses is help you connect with potential employers. Those are optional. And then also students sometimes do research over the summer as well. But then in the third semester, students start taking some electives, as well as in the automated science program, they take a really outstanding fundamentals of bioinformatics class that's taught by a colleague of both of ours, Philip Campo, who literally wrote a book, wrote the book, I guess, on bioinformatics. And so it's a really valuable class to have. Students in the computational biology program also start taking some biology electives and have a little bit of space in their schedule to take additional electives as well. And so some of those classes that are popular in those electives are, there's a class in neurocomputation. There are also some neurobiology courses. Microbiology has been really hot. I tell people that microbiology has had a very dramatic impact on the world economy, and there's going to be long-term investment in understanding how to manage how to deal with microbes better, and how to be better at predicting things. Actually, a colleague of mine at the University of Pittsburgh who is talking with one of our students about maybe starting a research program does flu and now starting to do COVID prediction of strains that'll come out. She's been predicting seasonal flu strains for many years. And so some of our students have been talking with her about maybe starting to do some research. We have a student doing computational drug discovery, students who do research that are in machine learning and its interface with biology, or in the neurobiology and machine learning interface as well. And then also students take a biological modeling and simulation course. And then I guess, Josh, did you want to talk more about the capstone as well for the automated science students?
Yep, sure. So we have a capstone project that's required of all of our students. And basically what's going on there is that we want to give the students real experience doing research that would be similar to what they might do in industry. And so the way that works is we go out and we solicit proposals from industry sponsors. And so for the last few years, we've had Emerald Cloud Lab, Biocero, Thermo Fisher, and Novartis involved with these projects. And so basically what they do is they propose a project, and then the students help us select what projects that they're going to work on. And then the students spend a semester tackling a project that was assigned to them by these sponsors, and then they get to interact with the sponsors periodically throughout the semester, where they talk about results, and they have a discussion about how to work through various problems they run into. So it's a really good experience for the students to get an idea of what actually working in industry can be like.
Yeah. And then in the fourth semester, there's let's see, so can you go ahead, Josh, to the next slide about oh, there we go. Yeah, so in the fourth semester, yeah, there are more elective courses and a little bit more space for what we call free electives, especially in the MS Comp Bio. There are a few more spaces for that. Students sometimes take additional data analytics classes, or we've also had students taking courses in other things. We've had students who've taken courses from the music department or the drama department as well while they're here. But these, in the automated science, you continue, that's a year-long capstone, but then in Comp Bio, we don't have that capstone structure. And instead, there's more flexibility in the curriculum in terms of the electives that students take. In both programs, students can do research as well for credit with faculty. That could be done over the summer or during the academic year as one of those Comp Bio or biology elective courses. And some of those also have involved partnerships with industry. And additionally, like I said before, students do summer internships, which are optional. And sometimes there is some continuation of that that does extend beyond. So it's not as structured in the computational biology program as it is in the automated science program, but there are still a lot of opportunities to develop the research and the industry contacts.
From that end, I'd point out two quick things. In the automated science program, we have two tracks. We have an industry track and a research or academia track. So if you know that you want to go into industry, then you can just take the professional track. And then if you want to go to graduate and get your PhD after you're done, you go the research track. And one of the changes is that the capstone is 1 semester for students on the PhD track, and it's 2 semesters for the industry track. Another important note about both programs: in the last 2 years, we've instituted a early admission program into the Carnegie Mellon Pitt combined computational biology PhD program. And so basically the way that works is you can submit an application to join the program in about the September timeframe, I believe. And then pretty quickly get back to you with a decision about whether to admit you early. And if you get admitted early, then that allows you to adjust your schedule to fulfill some of the requirements for the courses in the PhD program. And then you can also identify a lab that you might want to work with, and then you could continue with that lab as a PhD student. The other advantage that gives you is that for coursework, I mean, you still have to take a certain number of credits in the PhD program, but you have the extra time and flexibility to take more advanced classes. So you can take some really interesting machine learning or really advanced comp bio courses, and basically broaden your educational experience. So it's a nice thing if you can get that. But obviously there's no guarantees, but it's available for you to try.
Actually, yeah, that reminds me, so Josh showed before the employment statistics, and what wasn't there was the graduate school statistics. And so like he said, the automated science program is a little bit newer, so they've only had one cohort of students that have graduated, but computational biology program has been around for many years. And over the last 6 years that I've been closely involved in the program, the large majority, over 80, sometimes as high as 90% of students that are applying to PhD programs get in to one of their top 3 choice programs. And very rarely do we have students not get in anywhere. The Carnegie Mellon program is, just like the master's program, a challenging and competitive program, but students applying from our program get in at more than twice the rate of general application. So being here does improve chances of admission for that as well, just looking at the numbers. But we work with students. I work a lot with students, and Josh does as well, who are interested in graduate school to figure out what experiences are going to maximize their chances for getting into a PhD program. But yeah, so those are the main things about the coursework. There are a few slides as well about Pittsburgh and student life. So if you are interested and want to get in touch with students, you can email one of us and we're happy to connect you with some current students. But Pittsburgh is a really amazing and wonderful city. I had my own biases coming from the West Coast. I had a sort of preconceived notion of what Pittsburgh as a city would have been like. And Pittsburgh is actually a really beautiful and exciting and vibrant city. There's a lot to do. A lot of students in our program have found opportunities to take advantage of a lot of the culture in Pittsburgh. So yeah, we've got, there are a lot of museums. There's also a huge theater district. And the programs even have funding for some large events that we do, either student initiated or that we initiate, to get students an opportunity to get out into the city and learn about the city that they're living in, and also have an opportunity to spend some time with us away from classes, spend some time with each other when they're not cramming for a midterm exam or something. And this is, I think, a really great place to be and a great place to be a student. It's also, yeah, we've got great sports teams. Actually, the Pirates might not be the best indicator of that right now for if anybody follows like U.S. sports. But the hockey team and the football team here are really, the American football team are really very strong as well. But it's just, yeah, a fun place to be. And so Carnegie Mellon, it's in a very green, sustainable part of the city, and there is nearby affordable housing. I ran a comparison, actually. I don't think I put the slide in here, but just looking at cost of living indicators from websites that sort of look at what how far is your money going to go, and depending on there's always a range. You could rent an entire house just for one person, and that's going to cost you a lot more than if you're sharing a place or something like that. But most of our students live with a few others. But in terms of the numbers, if you look at Pittsburgh compared to other major cities, it's very, very affordable, and still has a lot of fantastic things to offer in terms of restaurants and other culture to see. So yeah, the students here really seem to like it. And so this is now a picture of where the computational biology department is housed. And so that's in the Gates Hillman Center. It's a pretty new building on campus. Actually, the computational biology master's program is split with the biological sciences department. So there's a little bit of administrative sort of, a lot of different components to it. And so there are more than just this one building where students will be. But my office is actually in another building sort of on the other end of campus. But we work together a lot, and I get to go and come over and chat with students there, or they come over to my office. And then we also have a lot of events, like I alluded to before, that we schedule things with our students. So we like to schedule social events, get together at the beginning of the year, middle of the year. We're having, in a few weeks, we're having a pre-Thanksgiving party a week before the US Thanksgiving. And so we get together for that. We also have events where either we do or the students initiate these things of going out and seeing Pittsburgh. I think this was one that none of the faculty were at, but the students just went out to enjoy some of the Kennywood Amusement Park. Or was this Fright Night? Is that what this was from?
I think this is Fright Night, maybe
Okay.
2 years ago.
Okay, so yeah, so the computational biology department takes over this amusement park where there are a lot of rides and other things late night on a Friday night, and everybody in the department just kind of has the run of the park. And then we also do other things as well. So for those of you who are coming from parts of the country or parts of the world that don't have snow, in Pittsburgh we do. And but we take advantage of that. And here's from a few years back, going inner tubing in the snow with some of the students from the master's program. And then, and so, now as well, the world is still in a different state than it was a few years ago. And we've moved a lot of these activities outside. And so this is from May of last year. A lot of the master's students got together, and I'm in there somewhere as well. And Philip, I think Josh wasn't at this one, but we had just dinner out on a lawn at Carnegie Mellon. And so we make the most of building a nice social environment for you to learn collectively in while you're here. And also to that end, there's also this nice office space. In the Gates Hillman building that you saw the outside view of before, there's the computational biology department has this really nice large corner office that is just for master's students in the two programs to come and work together. Now people still are required to wear masks, at least for this semester, while they're in that space. But it's still very full, and students are there talking. It's been really a great place. I've stopped in a couple of times. There are always students there, either working together or just working and having somebody close by that they can ask questions of when they're there. And so we do a lot to make this an enjoyable and also valuable time for you to really get the most out of your time here. And I think that's the last slide.
Yep, that's the last slide of the fun stuff.
So yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, then there's the application process. Okay, so yeah, so I do want to talk, there's a couple slides about the application process here. So yeah, so in the application, there's a single application for both programs. You can check off how many programs that you want. And so in that, you're going to, you'll need to supply a personal statement, some letters of recommendation, a resume. If you are not coming from a country that is either the US, Canada, excluding Quebec, and Australia or New Zealand, then you would need to supply TOEFL scores as well. And then, but yeah, can you go to the next slide, Josh?
Yep.
So yeah, so then in terms of the things that we're looking for in the application, we're really looking for students who are really enthusiastic about science and have quantitative skill. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to have a ton of programming background before you come in. There's an introductory programming class that students take, but you should demonstrate that you have been successful in the quantitative work that you've done. GREs are optional for this, and that's just a way to demonstrate quantitative skill if maybe your transcript, maybe some classes you took in the first couple of years of college don't really accurately reflect where your quantitative skill is now. If you have had experiences working in computational biology or courses in programming or algorithms, those are added pluses, but they're not necessary. And we have students coming into our program from many different backgrounds into both of our programs. And I think that that's one of the real strengths of our program. We have some students who are here never having taken a bio class or not having taken a bio class since like the 9-10 years ago, and other students who haven't taken any courses in programming. And our program is challenging for everybody, even students with a lot of background in both areas. But it makes for a great learning environment where you learn together with students who maybe have complementary experiences to the ones that you have. And so, yeah, and so I think there was maybe some questions, but we'll get to some questions about the application in just a bit. But there's a single spot to apply for both of these programs. You could also apply simultaneously as well to the PhD program that Josh mentioned, if you are interested in that. The applications are open. The deadline is January 9th, and we're going to start reviewing them on like January 11th, or sorry, December 9th and December 11th. Very important. There are fee waivers available. You can ask us if you're interested in asking about whether you might qualify for an application fee waiver. But yeah, this is it's not an onerous application, but we do want to see enthusiasm about really doing the computational biology. That's to me, at least, when I'm reviewing applications, the number one criteria that I look for is somebody who's really enthusiastic about dedicating themselves for 2 years to what we do here in our program and in these departments.
I'll just really quickly add, from a automated science perspective, we're also looking for enthusiasm for comp bio, but also if you have enthusiasm for large scale problems and or automation, that will also catch our attention for that program.
Cool. Yeah, that's true, because it's a little bit beyond biology in some senses. There's actually one question that people ask about is do you need these WES evaluations? For comp bio, we do not require that, so you don't need this sort of like third-party verification of the transcript. I don't think that's the case for any of the programs. Is that right, Josh? You don't ever have like this.
I've never actually heard of that, so
yeah,
I don't think it's a requirement.
Yeah, it's not a requirement for either of our programs. Now, one thing you should note is that this is an application that goes through all of the programs in the School of Computer Science use the same application. There are a couple sort of wrinkles in that. One is, just because we don't require something, it might be different for other programs. So you should check with them. But for the PhD in Comp Bio, the Masters in Comp Bio, and Masters of Automated Science, I'm confident that they don't require these third-party evaluations. Another thing that's just sort of the computational biology program because of sort of history and the collaborative aspect, even though you apply through the School of Computer Science, your academic degree home is actually in the biology department. And the coursework and advising is sort of shared between the two. That's something that is sometimes confusing for people, but I do want to make sure that that's something that everyone's aware of. Yeah, so I think that was maybe the end. Are there any more slides? So,
one more.
oh, yeah. So there's going to be in March, students who are admitted, we'll have virtual open houses, and we will have, we're discussing right now whether we're going to be able to do an in-person open house. That's still a little bit up in the air, but we're optimistic that there might at least be an option to do in-person open houses as well. Yeah. So I guess that's it. Maybe Sam, you can go ahead and stop the recording, and then we'll answer additional questions.